Hi, so my name's Victoria Oxberry and I'm an archivist at Durham County Record Office. We're also undergoing our own rebranding to The Story at Mount Oswald, which is also the name of the new site that we're going to be moving to. And I've been involved in the AM project Women's Voices and Life Writing. So the resource is being launched in early 2024, and it's an update of an earlier one produced by the company on microfilm. So that shows how long the company's been going. The project's purpose is to amplify the voices of women in Britain and Ireland across 3 centuries, illuminating issues of gender, class, race, disability, sexuality, religion, and more. The resource brings together diaries and oral histories to enable students and researchers to explore the life course of hundreds of individuals across diverse backgrounds, from abolitionists to suffragists, and from princesses to Republicans. Vivid narratives cover a range of themes, including domestic life, transport, sport, feminism, gender fluidity, religion and class within the collection, providing a platform for working class, LGBTQ+, and disabled women's voices. Primary sources such as diaries, commonplace books, correspondence and oral histories have been digitised and will be made available on the AM Collections platform. The Record Office became involved when we were contacted by Sophie Fowen in April 2020. Of course, this was the early days of the pandemic when we were all working from home. I had my mum staying with me for a month, so the room where my desk was in use. Because obviously we were expecting it to be a fairly temporary arrangement at that point. Liz Bagazzi, the then county archivist, was really interested in being involved with the project, but she had some apprehensions about the process, especially in light of the lockdown situation. Discussions were held around the digitisation process with the hope that our digitisation assistant would be able to carry out this rather than having an external company do it. And after some discussions, it was agreed that we'd be able to meet the standards that AM required, and we would be contracted to carry out the digitisation. The project was slow-moving due to the pandemic, and then there were further obstacles. So ordinarily, AM would send 1 or 2 researchers out to assess material and make decisions on whether to include it or not. However, with the Record Office being in County Hall and subject to their access restrictions, and County Durham still had high COVID rates even in July 2021, we were not able to have visitors in the search room. It was agreed that AM would hire a member of the archives team to carry out the assessment on their behalf, and this is where I joined the project. I've been an archivist for 15 years, and the last 10 of this has been as a project archivist in Durham. At the time, I was doing research into diaries as archival sources and putting together a talk on this for a conference, so Liz suggested me for the project. It also made a nice change for me as I've primarily worked with the Durham Light Infantry Military Archive, which is predominantly male, so looking at women's voices was going to be really interesting. And for me as well as an archivist, tying into some of the other talks, I get to support people with research and someone else gets to think about the outcomes. Sophie had already been through our online catalogue before even making contact with us, noting several items in some of our family and estate collections, in particular some of the Quaker families from Darlington to look at more closely. So several Zoom meetings took place between myself and Sophie. She guided me through the AM assessment process. I looked at the content to see if there was enough detail about any of the themes that we were looking for, as well as carrying out a physical assessment to determine any issues that might arise in the digitisation process. This is an extract of the part of the spreadsheet that Sophie had me go through to classify like all the different categories that they wanted to look at by document. So it included things like the legibility of the writing, both the script and how faint it might be, how tight the binding of volumes was, the size of the items. So in our case, this ranged from like really, really tiny right up to A3. Whether it could be captured as a single or double page, and what the general condition was. And this was one area where it was actually really useful that we were doing the digitisation ourselves, as if I had any queries about whether something would be suitable, I could call on our digitisation assistant and he could come and have a look at it and say, actually, no, that'll be fine, we can do that. And as I was being hired, I was agreed amount of time to carry out the work. And again, it worked quite well with someone who was familiar with the collections to do this, so I was able to a bit more quickly identify which material in the list to prioritise as to which ones I thought would be most likely to meet the criteria. Some of the selections that we include items from the Pease collection that encompasses 4 generations across three women's diaries. Anna Louisa Pease, her grandmother Anna Pease, née Fell, and her mother Mary Fell. There are also several diaries belonging to Elizabeth Pease, who was Anna Louisa's second cousin once removed. And as you can imagine, both the family tree and the names are quite complicated on that one. We're able to make other suggestions as well, such as the writing of Rachel Ann Mounsey, a member of Darlington Friends Essay and Philosophical Society. We have her notebooks of essays whose titles include On Growing Old and Fidgety People, which begins with the line, "Fidgety people are an awful bore," with 3 exclamation marks. Further to this, we were able to include some oral history sources from a project named Easington People, Past and Present, which saw local residents talking about their lives in the district, particularly during the First World War and after, including women who took on the jobs of men after they left to fight. At the same time that I was brought onto the project, we received some diaries from a donor who'd bought them from a book sale many years before and thought we would be a suitable repository for them. There were 4 diaries belonging to a young woman called Peggy Brown, the first of which is of particular note. She was living in Teesside with her mother and her vicar stepfather at the age of 18 in 1933, when she went to stay in a boarding house belonging to a mother and daughter in Dresden in Germany. A very unique perspective of a city, a time that would become pivotal in world history, that I was very keen to have used in some way, so the AM project was a perfect outlet for that. As well as ourselves in Durham, there are 11 other contributors to the project, including various UK national libraries, the University of Birmingham, Wigan and Lee Archives, and Bedfordshire Archives. Digitisation of all the archive content for the project is due to be complete by the end of October, and the metadata is 70% complete, with handwritten text and optical character recognition 80% complete. These elements are both on track to finish by the end of November, but due to our carrying out the digitisation in-house, the metadata and text recognition for the Durham material has already been completed. There are also already 6 essays, 2 videos, and 2 exhibitions signed up to use the resource. It'll be exciting to see what sort of research and creative output might come from our contributions to the project. The Record Office is not new to collaborating with partners. In particular, our First World War Centenary project saw us work with exhibitions and groups, both large and small. So one of our biggest creative collaborations from the Durham at War project was the Durham Hymns. As previously mentioned, we look after the archive of the Durham Light Infantry Regiment, which holds a wealth of diaries, correspondence and more of soldiers and officers from both the First World War and all the other times as well. The then Poet Laureate Carol Ann Duffy drew on soldiers' letters and diaries supplied by us at Durham County Record Office to write lyrics with composers Orlando Goff, Jessica Curry and Jonathan Bates, creating the powerful musical accompaniment to form the Durham Hymns, a brand new series of brass and choral work. The project also brought together communities from across County Durham, including members of local history groups, choirs and brass bands, to research and reflect on how the war affected and changed their communities. The historical research looked at events and personal experiences of the people of County Durham, both at home and on the front line, drawing on our primary sources. The work was premiered in summer 2016 at Durham Cathedral with a 100-strong choir and 50-strong brass band made up of County Durham people. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, we're moving to a new site. So you can see historically on the left and then our new additions to the building on the right. So Mount Oswald is an old country house that's being refitted and will house the registration service and staff offices upstairs and ceremony rooms downstairs where weddings will be held. And these spaces will also be available for us to host events. Then a new building has been added, which will house both the archives and the Maritime Museum collection, which also unites the DLI archive and objects under the same roof for the first time since the 1990s. It will also have the local studies collection and the historic environment record. This new building will also feature a search room and a digital hub on the first floor, and a cafe and exhibition space on the ground floor. The exhibition area will contain both permanent and temporary spaces. It is the intention that community groups will be able to use the temporary space to curate exhibitions using material from the stories collections. We have National Lottery Heritage funding for an activity plan which has allowed us to take on staff to specifically work with volunteers, community engagement and exhibitions. And this will enable us to collaborate even more with outside partners. We envision that any royalties from the AM project will be reinvested into this sort of work. The first temporary exhibition to be produced is by a group, will be unveiled next year and is being created in collaboration with the Durham Youth Council. The Youth Council is coordinated by Durham County Council and has over 100 members aged from 11 to 19 from across the county. The Youth Council is involved early on with consultation for the story, actually carrying out consultations on our behalf with other young people. The Record Office is still closed to the public now because of move preparations and not COVID, so it's thought that working with a group who are already familiar with what we do would be more beneficial than trying to introduce a new group. The Youth Council had already formed a history subgroup of 12 people aged 11 to 18, and they were really eager to take part in the exhibition. The main criteria is that they needed to use at least two of the five collections that will be housed at the story. The group has chosen to use the archives, the Durham Light Infantry collection and archaeology to tell the story of children from the county from ancient times to the recent past, and are keen to use the children's voices as much as possible. As well as coming up with the ideas, themes and what they want visitors to take away from the exhibition, they're also involved in making sure the content is accessible and well presented for all the ranges. And this slide and the previous one are designed actually by the members of the Youth Council for potential layouts of the exhibition. Initially, the Youth Council were able to access some original material, but this has moved to digital surrogates now that items are being packed up. But interestingly, and perhaps surprisingly considering the other topics being discussed today, they're keen to present the exhibition in quite a traditional way, not using a lot of technology, as they feel it gives more weight to the stories that they're wanting to tell. Once we are moved and settled into our new building and collections are accessible again, we'll be able to move forward with other partnership projects. In the immediate future, the different services at the story will be experiencing a new day-to-day collaboration as we learn to work side by side with each other, and we're excited by the ideas and opportunities that this might generate. Thank you.